Rampage was a 1986 arcade game that was ported to many consoles. I already talked about the NES version a few years back, so why not take a look at the Atari 2600 port? Like I said, the original arcade version came out in '86. This was late enough in Atari's existence, as the next console generation was already going on. But the Atari Port didn't come out until 1989. By this point, the generation after was just getting started with the release of the Sega Genesis. The Atari 2600 was 12 years old at this point, and the 16-bit era was about to begin. Was there really a point in porting this to such an archaic console? Well, let's take a look and see how it fares. To start, you can pick between any of the 3 playable characters from the arcade, George, Lizzie, and Ralph. That's actually a step up from the NES version. You couldn't play as Ralph in that one, although he's the only one that looks distinct. George and Lizzie look the same aside from the color. The graphics are decent. The buildings are plain looking, and even though the monsters don't differ much besides the color, they at least look okay. And the enemy vehicles are recognizable enough. The animation isn't too bad either, particularly on the monster when he walks and eats people, but the controls are awkward. Walking and climbing is okay, but punching requires you to thrust the joystick in the direction you're punching while pressing the fire button. You can punch forward, downward behind you, or high and behind you. Since you're generally going to be climbing, punching a hole, and then climbing up a bit more, punching another hole, you have to keep jerking the joystick back and forth while pressing the fire button every other time. It's a bit unnatural and gets repetitive. But then again, so does the game anyway. There are 85 cities, and they're all only subtly different from each other every once in a while. Barely. So it's really more of a patience test than anything else, because the game's not too hard to begin with. Rampage probably couldn't translate that much better to the 2600, but the underlying factor is that it doesn't translate to the 2600 very well in the first place.